Hey Jack, how's it going? You're back.
Oh, hey guys, how you doing, Philbrook faithful? I hear we've been getting some maybe questions on some specific vegetables or edibles that we'd like to maybe sow in our garden or grow this time of year. I'm a big fan of always saying grow what you like to eat, but as you can tell with the storms a brewing and the hot temperatures, it's definitely spring to summertime, and so that means we're going to get ready for our hot season vegetables. So what are some of our hot season vegetables? That would be everything from herbs like basils, oreganos, dills, lemongrass, all the way to peppers, squash, summer, winter. Let's see what, beans, beets. There's quite a lot of few things that you can grow. And so, luckily here at Philbrook, we have a nice greenhouse. And so I get to have a nice start before the last frost happened. And I like to sow certain vegetables indoors to get a good start before the summer hits. So if you guys want to look close right over here, I think on the last greenhouse tour I showed you some of the seeds I sow really thickly, and then I kind of just pull them out of the trays and put them into larger size trays. Now obviously we mark them. These are some peppers. We got some tomatoes. Got a couple of different kind of cultivars of eggplant. One lone pepper. I got all the rest of them, thankfully. And so if you guys are wondering, it's just a little small tray like this with, I put our media in. The media is important because it has to hold water, but it also has to be light enough, just like you and I. We need air to breathe. The seed needs air to breathe. It's a living plant. And so in order to germinate, it needs air, water, and then to be a viable seed. So usually when we purchase seeds in, they come in packages, and they're more often than not very viable, hopefully. And so if you look on the very back of the package, if you don't have a lot of experience, they should say there's something very important here. It says seed depth. So what that means is how deep you're supposed to put it from the top of the soil. You don't want to bury it too deep. They could rot. You don't want to put it too close to the surface. It might not get enough moisture. So you've got to pay attention to that very closely. So even though I sow them thickly in here, I still adhere to those guidelines. Certain plants with these large seeds, they don't want their roots disturbed, so we plant them outside. And so I have to wait for the soil temperature to get above 60 degrees. Look how big those are. And so, compared to like some small other edible seeds, as you can see, seeds come in a lot of different variety, a lot of different shapes. And so, certain seeds like to be indoors, certain ones like to be outdoors. And squash, some of your beans, let's see, beets, carrots, a lot of the winter squash, summer squash, a lot of those like to be directly sown in watermelon, like to be directly in the garden.
Can you talk about, a lot of people hear about heirloom seeds and what that is, what that means actually? Is it, we just taking seeds from different years and just carrying them on? What does that mean if you're kind of using seeds over and over again and this heirloom seed idea?
Yeah, that's definitely kind of the main general idea of what heirloom gardening is, and that is you have to specifically choose a plant that's open pollinated. So what that means is it can receive pollen from another plant and the seed will remain true to type after you harvest it. Okay, there's a lot of open pollinated plants, and we choose, and what would make a good pollinated or a good variety depends on whether it's like early, late, disease resistant, it's bigger, it's sweeter, any of these above factors you would want over another one. You would choose that fruit, harvest it for the seed, let the seed dry properly, and then next year, sow them out. But each year, they get acclimatized to where you're at, and so they can get better and better and better and better.
Very cool.
Yeah, heirloom, I do encourage you to do heirloom vegetable growing, and it also helps you save seed.
So when you hear about an heirloom tomato, the heirloom part is because it comes from heirloom seeds?
Yes, it also refers to the way that it was developed with its parent. Vegetables, I know it sounds weird, are like people. There's a mom and a dad, and just like a mom and a dad come together for a baby, and the baby's a little bit of each, that's what the heirlooms do. Hybrids have been interbred so much that I can choose a seed that off of that fruit, it might be a totally different pepper. I have no idea what gene is going to come out of that on what they bred into it. So, if you want to save seeds from plants, make sure it's an heirloom or an open pollinated variety. That way, when you sow them out, it'll be the same thing as it was last year, or just the better variety of it, not something completely different.
Yeah. All right, what else we got to look at here?
Oh gosh, we want to look at some fun. These are interesting. These are some plumeria, actually. Alicia's done pretty well. If you guys recall earlier on a greenhouse video, Jeff showed them in the corner pretty tall. Well, we also cut some of the taller sections off and put them in these. This blue mat right here is a heat mat. And if you look over here, it's got called a rheostat. We can actually control the temperature. And so that's, I mean, if you want to get pretty sophisticated, this is how we do it right here. So these mats are waterproof. Most of these seeds, if you
This is like a fancy garden version of like when your like leg is aching and you need like a heating pad, basically.
Okay, so one of the reasons we use a heating pad is to warm the soil. Why would we want to warm the soil? I start these tomatoes 4 to 8 weeks, some of them, these are the latest crop, before the last frost. The soil isn't warm enough. They still need warm temperatures. This helps warm the soil for them to germinate easier. Most vegetables, their germination percentage lives on a bell curve, and I don't know if you guys know what that, looks like a bell. So there's a window about 15 to 20 degrees that most vegetables, depending on the variety it is, have the most success on germination. Tomatoes, it could be anywhere upwards from 70 to 85 degrees. Spinach, it's a cold weather crop. It wants 45 to 50 degrees. And so that's another important fact to consider when you're looking at sowing vegetables is how, what season do they grow in? So what kind of climate do I need to put them in?
Yeah. What kind of things can't we really grow successfully in Tulsa at Philbrook based on our climate and some other things? Have you had any things that didn't work out quite so well based on just our climate or restrictions based on where we are?
Well, that's probably, I mean, as any horticulturist can attest, I've killed my fair share of everything. We live in a certain zone. Luckily, Oklahoma, we can grow quite a few things as far as vegetables are concerned. But if we start to move into sort of like hops or like cranberries or certain other cultivars of certain apple trees where we don't get cold enough for them to do successful. But we live in the modern age where there's many cultivars, so they have bred a lot of different of these traits out. So I think you'd be surprised at how successful we can be in Oklahoma. We're right in the middle of where everything grows well.
And having a great greenhouse like this, we do have a pretty large lemon tree right out there. We're able to have that because we have a greenhouse. Obviously, that wouldn't be able to live outside year-round.
Yeah, so another thing you can look for plants, if you buy them, they have different zones that they're rated for. The zone is referred to cold hardiness. What that means is the lowest average temperature we could see within, like, say, 50-year span. We're zone 7. So that means that anything from 7 to 0 would probably do pretty well here, because that means it would not freeze out. If we would go to, say, a zone 8, zone 9, zone 10, that's when we talk about our lemon tree, which is a zone 10. It's a tropical. It can live outside in Florida or in the Keys all year round. It's too cold here, so we got to bring it inside.
I got a couple of questions from our guests. Are fig trees in Oklahoma successful? Can we grow fig trees?
Yes, I'm super excited. We just purchased some fig trees in. I interned at Linnaeus Gardens. I also took care of fig trees where I got to eat them straight off the tree. There's several varieties that will do well here.
Yeah.
So, in containers is where I've had the most luck, but they can grow in the ground as long as they can be protected sometimes.
What about artichokes?
Artichokes, yes, they grow well. But here's the other thing: a lot of people, when they want to grow these artichokes, or say like Brussels sprouts, they require a long period of growth, and then they require cold temperatures in order for the fruit to mature or not to bolt. So most of those vegetables actually do very well here in the fall. And I know that sounds weird, but we would sow our seeds in like August and then let those grow out through the winter. As anybody that's lived in Oklahoma can attest, it can be 40 one day and 90 the next day. And a few weeks of that, your broccoli can bolt, which can be frustrating to a beginning gardener.
And bolt means basically what? It just grows past its usefulness?
It's probably bitter. It's on its way to say, hey, I'm going to produce some seed.
Okay.
So it's vegetables just like any other tree, or that's their life cycle, is to grow and produce a seed, which is their fruit.
All right. Any other seed tips we want to hear before we sign off for the day?
I don't know. If you got any questions or so, just I say email Philbrook or just let us know.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions that we didn't touch on here, feel free to comment on the video. We can run them by Jack and we'll get some answers to you if we have them. Thanks,
Yeah,
Jack.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.